true disclosure today in the publication of Virginia Giuffre's posthumous autobiography. The title, Nobody's Girl, a memoir of surviving abuse and fighting for justice. Co-author Amy Wallace joins us in just a moment. Giuffre died by suicide earlier this year, but she documented the abuse she suffered at the hands of Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. Quoting now from the book, "Just when I thought things couldn't get worse for me, they did. Epstein trafficked me to a man who raped me more savagely than anyone had before. We were on Epstein's island when I was ordered to take this man to a cabana. Immediately it was clear that this man, whom I've taken pains to describe in legal filings only as a well-known prime minister, wasn't interested in caresses. He wanted violence. He repeatedly choked me until I lost consciousness and took pleasure in seeing me in fear for my life." About Prince Andrew, she writes, quote, "I hadn't wanted to have sex with the prince, I said, but I felt I had to. Our livelihoods depended on it, for one thing, but I also truly believed there was no way for me to free myself from Epstein and Maxwell's grip." And then there's this, quote, "He put his hand on my back, a fond gesture that was rare for him. I hope you know how much I appreciate you for embracing my lifestyle," he began, as Maxwell cozied up to me, up next to me too. "Over the past several months, you've shown me a devotion that is difficult to find. The friends I've introduced you to agree. You are a delightful young woman." He took a breath and wondered where all this was going, and I wondered where all this was going. Then he came out with it. "Jenna, I want you to have our baby." Joining us now is her co-author, Amy Wallace. It's just remarkable. I mean, the details in this. Near the end of the book, she says, "I don't regret it, but the constant telling and retelling has been extremely painful and exhausting. With this book, I seek to free myself from my past." You worked with her for 4 years. How do you think she would feel to have this out in the public now?
Well, she made it very clear how she would feel, because she sent me an email about 3 weeks before she died saying, "In the case of my passing, I want this book published, not just for me, but for all survivors of sexual abuse, not just Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, but for anyone who has been coerced into sex against their will." So she very much wanted this book published, and I think she would be very proud, and it's a victory for her even after her passing.
She writes in the book, "I believe that I might die a sex slave." And another point says, "Inside I was seething. Day and night, my every waking moment was circumscribed by his wants and needs," talking about Epstein. "I was caught in the trap of familiar diminishment, but still something about Epstein's hold on me kept me docile and acquiescent." What do you think it was at the core of it?
Well, I think she writes about this really eloquently. You know, there's sort of a predator's playbook in this narrative, in this memoir. Not only were these girls deceived lured into a home thinking they were going to give a massage, and then sexually, raped and assaulted by both Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, but then they were also had this sort of mental jujitsu that the classic groomer does, which is, we are going to degrade you sexually, emotionally, physically, but we are also going to tell you, we see something in you, you're special. And a lot of these girls had not heard that ever, and some of them definitely had not heard it enough. And there was this class issue as well. They were poor girls for the most part. They were chosen from the seedier side of the tracks. They were desperate financially, and these posh people were telling them they saw promise in them. And there was Virginia writes about it really movingly, that was kind of what kept her enmeshed in that world, because she did feel validated in a very strange way. In her case also, and this may have been true for other victims, she was actually threatened by Jeffrey Epstein. He showed her a picture of Sky, who I believe you've interviewed, her younger brother, 5 years younger, and said, "We know where he goes to school. If you ever turn on me, I will hurt him." So she had a lot of things keeping her in line.
She also writes, I mean, there's a lot of blame placed on Maxwell in addition to Epstein. I mean, she said at one point that she saw them as two halves of a wicked whole. I wonder, what do you think she would make of Maxwell now being moved to this other, less secure, cozier prison?
Well, I think she would be aghast at the moving her to basically a club fed, it's a minimum security prison. She would also be aghast at the idea that anyone is considering possibly pardoning this woman. She's not only a proven sexual predator. She's been convicted in a court of law of being involved in the whole sexual trafficking scheme. So this book makes clear that Ghislaine Maxwell was not just the receptionist that kept the notes on when the next girl was going to come, and not just a procurer, although she did procure, and that was in itself evil, but she also sexually abused these young girls herself. She said to them repeatedly, "Come over here and sexually service me." She hurt them. Virginia describes a scene where Ghislaine hurt her during sex with a variety of ghastly sex tools to make her pay for something that Ghislaine was angry at her about. So this woman is an abuser in her own right, and the fact that anyone is even bandying about the idea that she might be pardoned is just unthinkable.
Yeah, I mean, it's just such a, it's just, the whole thing is just so awful. To have her voice out there, though, I think is so important. It puts, it makes her into a much more of a human, since she's not here to speak for herself right now.
Well, and that was a real goal of the book. You know, obviously a lot of the most terrible things in the book have gotten a lot of attention over the past week as it's been about to be released today. But we really tried to depict her as a woman in full. You know, this was a complicated person. This was a person who had a huge heart. This was a person who not only had very terrible things happen to her in her childhood and her young adulthood, but she also then escaped from those two people. She then became a mom. She then became an advocate. And we show her in that evolution. Pressing for the world to be a better place for all of us.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for being here with us. I appreciate it.
Of course, I really appreciate it.
The book is Nobody's Girl. Amy Wallace, thank you.